spectacular 2003 Grammy Awards, Wednesday at 8:15 on Network 2.
Now on 2, we join Anthony Murnane for all today's top stories from home and abroad in News 2, followed by European weather.
US and UK submit second resolution saying time has run out for Saddam Hussein. New legislation will mean no drink without ID for 18 to 25-year-olds. 8 men face trial in connection with asylum seekers found dead in Wexford last year. Hello there and welcome to News 2. Later on the programme, Joe will have all the day's sports news and would you put your diary on the internet? We'll explain the latest developments in blogging. But first, the United States and Britain have proposed a second UN resolution on the Iraqi crisis. Tonight's proposal states that Iraq's weapons of mass destruction pose a threat to international peace and security and concludes that Iraq has failed to take the final opportunity to disarm. The draft text is designed to clear the way for military action against Iraq. Tonight, the Iraqi president, Saddam Hussein, is quoted as saying he does not intend to destroy his Al-Samud missiles or even pledge to destroy them as demanded by Chief UN Weapons Inspector Hans Blix. Our Europe correspondent Sean Whelan reports.
The tabling of a second UN resolution by the US and Britain has once again laid bare the divisions in Europe over how to deal with Iraq, just a week after EU leaders had papered over the cracks. The British, supported by temporary Security Council member Spain, see a second resolution as essential, giving political legitimacy to the use of force by America. But the French say there's no need for a second resolution because the weapons inspections are getting results and should be allowed to continue. Tonight, the French have presented a memorandum to the Security Council setting out specific targets and a tight timetable for Iraq to get rid of its weapons of mass destruction. In Berlin tonight, Chancellor Schröder backed the French plan, which is also supported by the Russians. With the big players going their own way, where does this leave the Irish?
We believe that whatever time the inspectors and the Security Council regard as useful and necessary is the time frame regarding a second resolution. I don't believe a second resolution should be adopted before the next inspector's report, at a minimum.
But with no common position on the matter of war and peace, the EU's foreign policy chief admitted defeat.
We should have been able to get a common position, but we haven't. And that is part of the effort that the presidency and myself and the Commission and Chris Patten, we have been trying to strive to obtain. But we have to say very frankly, at least I have to say very frankly, that I have failed.
There is simply no agreement here on whether the work of the inspectors will be helped or hindered by a second resolution. And that division is reflected in the 4 votes the EU states have on the Security Council. 2 votes back a second resolution and 2 votes are against, at least for the moment.
Well, we're joined now on the line by our Washington correspondent, Carol Coleman. Carol, we've heard a lot of talk about this second resolution. It's been tabled now. What's the significance of it?
Well, I think the second resolution is more or less the United States and Britain, and this time Spain as well, which co-signed onto this, is saying the game is up for Saddam Hussein. The wording of it is that he has failed to take up his last chance. And it reminds those who drew up and voted for the resolution in the first place that serious consequences were threatened if he did fail. So the implicit thing there, although it's not written in English, is that it is now time to face those serious consequences. But I think it's really throwing down the gauntlet to the members of the Security Council to live up to their word. President Bush has said several times before, you draw up a resolution, you vote for it, now you have to decide, does it mean anything? He believes the United Nations is not relevant if it can't enforce its resolutions. So it seems to be this resolution is aimed just as much at the members of the Security Council as it is at Saddam Hussein himself.
The Security Council is due to hear back from the weapons inspectors before the end of the month. What is the timetable now that this second resolution is public?
Well, it looks as if the British and the Americans would like to have a vote on this within the next 2 weeks. 2 weeks will bring us up until the 10th of March. It seems that week really between the 10th and the 17th, which incidentally is the week when Bertie Ahern visits the White House for the St. Patrick's Day celebrations. It looks as if all the action will be happening then. That's if the United States wait that long. I believe the only reason they're waiting that long is because of Britain. Tony Blair needs that second resolution, and George Bush wants to keep him on board and doesn't really want to let him down. But the time frame is really the middle of March. Hans Blix will deliver some sort of a preliminary report on the 1st of March. Saddam Hussein will have to destroy his Al-Samud missiles by the 1st of March, but then on the 7th of March there'll be an open session in the UN. The US will be calling for a vote very soon after that. It wants to get those troops into action before it gets too hot over in the desert.
All right, Carol, thanks for talking to us. The Justice Minister, Michael McDowell, has said he intends bringing in new legislation to compel people aged between 18 and 25 to carry identification if they want to drink in pubs. Mr McDowell said the onus would be on the pub owners to ensure that the licensing laws were being complied with. While Licensed Vintners Association has welcomed the proposal, the Council for Civil Liberties said it was unnecessary. News 2's Mary Calpin has this report.
The Justice Minister is getting tough on the problem of underage drinking. At present, Michael McDowell says underage drinkers can legally remain in pubs, and it's difficult for Gardaí to identify who's drinking and who's not. But he says the proposed introduction of a new mandatory ID card for 18 to 25-year-olds will clarify this situation.
The present law, which allows, say, a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old to be in a pub all day and up to closing time, is going to have to come to an end.
The Licensed Vintners Association broadly welcomed the proposal, but said it might cause logistical problems.
Would just give more discretion to refuse. If a person didn't have the card, well, that would be the end of it, and I think that would strengthen the publican's position.
However, the Council for Civil Liberties said new legislation was unnecessary.
We'd like to see some clarification from the Minister on this issue. We would be opposed to any issue of mandatory identification, particularly mandatory ID, just against one group in society of a particular age, which we think is very unfair.
There was a mixed reaction by those who may have to carry the card.
If there's like 4 or 5 of us out in the one night and I get stopped or one of the lads gets stopped, and sure it's ruined someone's night if we do get it, you know.
I don't see the problem in everyone getting their ID card. Well, in most cases there shouldn't be a problem.
People are happy enough that underage drinking should be cut out, really.
Minister McDowell also said he favoured the introduction of different pub opening and closing times for different counties. What's good for Temple Bar, he said, was not necessarily good for Templemore.
The trial gets underway in the morning in the Belgian city of Bruges of 8 men charged in connection with the deaths of 8 asylum seekers found dead inside a freight container in Wexford 15 months ago. The victims, all Turkish, had spent over 50 hours at sea. From Bruges, Tony Connolly reports.
What began as a journey from southeastern Turkey to a better life ended in horror at a business park in Wexford. Of 13 stowaways in a freight container opened on December 8, 2001, 8 were found dead. 2 families were nearly completely wiped out. 4 children were among the victims of the reckless trade in human trafficking. The Calendergill and Guler families had left their poverty-stricken homelands separately, following complicated routes to Western Europe through Bosnia, Italy, Spain and France, hoping to get to the UK. At a critical stage in the journey, both families converged in Belgium, where they stowed themselves inside a truck outside Brussels. They'd allegedly been in touch with traffickers and money had changed hands. The families left the port of Zeebrugge on December 5th in a sealed container. They understood they were making the 8-hour journey to Dover, but tragically the container was bound instead for Waterford, a 53-hour journey through a force 10 gale. This is seen as an important trial here. The tragedy closely followed another fatal episode when 52 Chinese nationals perished in a container that had left Zeebrugge for Dover. The investigation has spanned 3 countries, and the makeup of the defendants reflects the transnational nature of the alleged conspiracy. They include the Belgian truck driver, 2 nationals of the former Yugoslavia, 2 Albanians including a father and son, and 1 Belgian of Turkish extraction. 2 other named defendants, 1 Albanian and 1 Turkish, are still being sought by police.
Just half of all workers in the private sector are covered by a pension plan, according to the Pensions Board. Today, the board granted licences to 6 financial institutions to sell new personal retirement savings accounts. It's hoped that the scheme will help increase pension coverage. Next tonight, Richard Dowling has some of the other main news.
The Supreme Court has granted an interlocutory injunction against Dunleary Rathdown County Council, stopping it from carrying out any further work at the medieval Carrickmines Castle site in South Dublin. 2 protesters who took the action say they're delighted. The council said the 27-page ruling would have to be studied. Talks are expected to resume soon between the government and the farm organisations on social partnership. The Taoiseach told farmers they were wrong to stay outside the partnership process. Leaders of the ICMSA and IFA indicated their readiness to talk, but stressed the importance of having adequate resources. Police in the north have warned that the person who murdered a newborn baby girl a year ago could kill again. Detectives were speaking after an inquest into the death of the infant, who was named Carrie by police. The baby's mother has never been identified, and the coroner appealed again for her to come forward. Television presenter Matthew Kelly spoke of his relief today after police ruled out further action over an allegation that he sexually abused a young boy. Detectives said they were taking no further action over the allegation, which dated back to the 1970s. But the TV host was cautioned after cocaine was found during a search of his London home.
Next tonight, to some major developments in the world of blog. What I'm talking about is online diaries or weblogs, and in the last week, the company responsible for their growth has been bought out by the hugely successful search engine Google. The sheer number of blogs has prompted an Irish company to develop technology which will allow users update their diaries using their mobile phones.
9:51 p.m, the 23rd of the 2nd, 03. Can't believe it. The split was amicable. Didn't spell that right though.
8:30 a.m, 24th of the 2nd, 2003. Yeah, I got quite drunk last night. What am I doing up at this time?
I've managed to banish the feelings of paranoia I've had about my friends.
Why people do it? I guess they just want to stay in touch with like-minded individuals, have their ideas broadcast out there on the web.
Blogging has all the hallmarks of being an underground movement, yet there are over 1 million weblogs on the net and they are growing. There are some 300 Irish web diaries listed here alone. Blogger.com is one of the sites that allows non-techies create and publish their own online diaries and make their mark on the net. It's now been bought by the hugely successful search engine Google, which defied the .com collapses of the past and has become a global brand.
It's going to make blogging sort of mainstream. Whether or not, or how mainstream it's going to become remains to be seen, but it's clear that Google doesn't do anything without thinking a great deal about it, and so far everything Google has done has turned to gold.
The sites aren't all personal and wacky. Some, like technology journalist Carolyn Lillington, use it to provide serious information and analysis on her specialised subject. Users can change their blogs as often as they like. Now staff at this Irish company have come up with the technology to allow bloggers update their diaries using their mobile phones.
Phones offer a unique way of making blogging truly mobile, because a mobile phone, you carry it around with you. You can easily take a picture of someone, you can easily add text to that and voice to that, and send it to a blogging service which creates a website for you.
Some analysts are predicting that in 2 years everybody with a mobile phone will have a website, and it's thought that's why Google bought Blogger. In recent weeks, news of the Columbia disaster spread through the blog network before it was picked up by the mainstream media. Maybe Google bosses see it as one part of the way we'll gather news and information in the future. There you have it. Now, still ahead on News 2, this year's BAFTA and Grammy winners, but first, winner all right, it's Joe on the sport.
Yes indeed, thank you Anthony. Racing dominates this evening with the news that trainer Tony Martin is to appeal against the 6-week suspension incurred by the Aintree Grand National second favourite David's Lad at Naas yesterday. Now, the 9-year-old was banned from running until April the 6th by the stewards, who ruled the racecourse had been used as a training ground as the horse trailed in last under Timmy Murphy in the Newlands Chase.
Business as usual in Tony Martin's yard outside Trim, but this wasn't a good weekend for the County Meath stable, with David's Lad, the second favourite for this year's Martel Grand National, now set to miss one of racing's biggest days, thanks to a 42-day suspension picked up at Naas yesterday. The 2001 Irish Grand National hero was never competitive under Timmy Murphy, finishing last of 8 runners, leading the stewards to conclude the racecourse had been used as a training ground and imposing a €1,000 fine on Tony Martin. a 7-day suspension on Murphy and a 42-day ban on David's Lad that ends the Monday after the National.
I think he just came home very strong, and Timmy was probably a bit far out at that stage. I think he should have been more forceful looking at the video, and the stewards have a job to do. I definitely think Tommy could have been. But as I say, I'd have to respect Timmy.